This is Cammie.
And this is Steph. Welcome back to the War Dolls podcast, where we put the spotlight on the wonderful women in our community.
Today we have our fellow war doll, Shana, with us. Shana, aka Ever Raven, welcome to the War Dolls podcast.
It's an honor for y'all to even ask me. I'm still confused why I'm here.
Because you're wonderful.
I try.
And you know things.
Oh, no, that's true. I do drink coffee and know things.
Yes, you do.
You've been in the hobby for quite some time now.
I have been. I've been painting. I started painting ceramics with my mother when I was 10 and moved to miniatures when I was 14. And I am scaring my 50th birthday down in the face. So do the math. I'm not good at math. And I've been playing tabletop role-playing games since I was 15. And I've been playing Warhammer since 1995, 94. I've participated in gaming tournaments. I've played live-action role-playing games. If it's out there, I've played it.
So tell us a bit about how you got started in the hobby and then how you became a war doll.
Which hobby? Pick one. Actually, let me tell you how I started being a war doll. I've known Cammie since 1996. Cammie, is that about right? 1997?
Circa.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
It's all blurry.
It's all very blurry. We both used to participate in a LARP here in the state of Mississippi where we lived at the time. And it was multiple states. You could play in Atlanta or you could play here in Mississippi. And I met Cammie, and the two of us ran around with shields, spears, and swords and stabbed people pretending to be orcs. So that's how I met Cammie. And Cammie convinced me right when I guess War Dolls was starting, she was like, hey, you've got to join up and join with us. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. This is right up my alley, a bunch of girls to sit around and talk to every Thursday night and paint miniatures. And it has been extremely therapeutic and extremely, gosh, it's just such a good community. I sit around my kitchen table with my cell phone on or my headphones on, and I paint miniatures. So it makes me paint, and I get to talk to all these wonderful people who are all the way across the United States and are from different walks of life. And we try to help each other and encourage each other and tell stupid and insane stories of our childhood and life. And so, me and Cammie's like, yeah, we have. I'm like, yeah, we. And I'm a tale teller. I'm a storyteller from a long time ago. I think that's why I've been a DM since I was 15. So, 40 years. No, let's do the math. Don't make me do the math.
But you
30 years at it.
You also have excellent advice, both in hobbying and in life itself.
I try,
And sometimes these girls need to hear that.
Yeah, well, especially young girls who are just starting painting need the encouragement. Young girls who are just starting D&D, or even old girls who are just starting to want to play a D&D game or just wanting to pick up a miniature brush. When you're young at a hobby, it's very scary at first because you're not good at it. And you're not supposed to be good at it. You're doing a hobby, no matter if that hobby is sitting down and painting a miniature or sitting down and playing a tabletop role-playing game with friends or sitting down and playing a board game or, a war game or anything. It's supposed to be fun. And that's something I've had to learn in my life is I'm an extremely competitive person. I don't look it, but I am. Cammie knows how I have chased an orc down and beat the living sense out of him before, so she knows I am a competitive person. But that said, she's also seen me play tabletop Warhammer before in actual competitive scenarios. And I'm very competitive, and it turns me into a person I do not like. I used to play Magic. I played Legends of the Five Rings quite a lot back when it first came out in the mid-90s. I played Magic in the mid-90s. I miss my Sarah Angels. But I quit. My husband and I realized that I'm not a good person when I do that. And if I can't play for fun, I shouldn't play. And he's right. If you're too competitive at something and you can't enjoy it for fun, it becomes a job. And it's not good for your health. It's not good for your mental health. And so in order to, there's a gaming store in town, and I tried to play Warhammer competitively again back in the 2018, 2019, really hard. And I looked down and was like, nope, I can't do this. I enjoy playing the game, but I can't play competitively with people. I can't enter a contest because when someone cheats against me, the lawyer in me comes out. And I've been a lawyer now for 20 years. And I just like, that's not the rule. That's not how this works. And then they look at me and go, oh, she's just being a stupid woman. I didn't do that. I'm like, no, you totally push your model an extra 3 inches. Can you please back it up? And I realized that's not a way to have fun. So, but the same things with miniature painting. If you enjoy it, you gotta not want it to be perfect. You gotta just put it down and say, nope, that's good enough. I'll try again next time.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with my Path of the Worthy entry for this year. My husband keeps pushing me to, do more and continue to make it better. And I'm just like, no, you know what? It is, I don't think it's going to get any better based on my current skill set. And so I just need to stop and just let it be what it is, get the judges' feedback, and take that to better myself next time.
Yeah, and I call it. I got to futz with it. I got to keep futzing with it. And that once you hit that mental phase, I got to keep futzing with it. It's time to put it down. Now, maybe you'll go back to it 2 months later and go, no, now
Yeah.
I'm ready to do something else with it. But
Yeah.
I'm also one of those people that when I'm finished with the pop project, that's the end of it. I've painted miniatures multiple times. I've actually painted 2 versions of the Warhammer 30K version of Sanguinius. And I look at both, and I painted them about a year apart, and both of them for someone else rather than myself. And I looked at the first one and was like, I really like how that came out. I really like how the wings did. I really like how the armor looks. And the person that had originally purchased it from me, he's like, no, I want you to change this and this. And I was like, but I like the way I did it the first time. But when I painted it the second time, I improved so much in certain things. His choices worked really well for what he wanted for the model. But there were other parts of it I'm like, no, I know I can stop here because I know this is chef's kiss, right? It's interesting. Sometimes painting a model 2 or 3 times, paint orcs, paint little tiny orcs or little soldiers, and slowly but surely you'll watch when you paint Warhammer 40K and you got to paint 75 Space Marines or something. You look at the first one and you're like, dude, you look horrible, and I only painted you like 6 months ago. Why does the other one look so good? But it's practice.
It is. It's practice and repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Repetition is a good teacher, because painting stormtroopers and painting space marines and painting skeletons, like all the things that I've painted over and over and over, I have learned to economize and just turn into shortcuts. And I call it my Sith style of painting, the quick and easy path. So yeah, just you over time you will develop your own personal style. And I always tell new people that I'm like, look at the stuff online and use it as a guideline. It's not the rule in how to paint. That's not the only way to paint white, or that's not the only way to wash skin, or do hair or whatever. There's multiple different ways, and you have all these different tools at your to put in your mental toolbox. So it's just a matter of adapting, taking what fits you and making it your own, and then that becomes your style.
Well, something that I always tell people when it comes to miniature painting, I have a friend of one of my friends' young son comes to our house every Wednesday night, listens to us play D&D while he paints at my miniature desk, and uses my stuff and the hundreds and hundreds of miniatures that I have stored over the years in my great pile of shame. But he's so worried about the fact that he says, I'm getting out of the lines. So I went, that's cool. It's cool. Don't worry about it. You'll learn how not to get out of the lines. He's like, well, I keep, my coloring isn't as good as yours. Don't worry about it. You'll learn. Just keep going. And his first models, they're rough. But but 2 weeks ago, he's been doing this now for 6-7 weeks. And about, not this week, but last week on Wednesday, he came to us and showed us his model. And it was really an extreme improvement because he's got his hand-eye coordination better now. He's a kid. He's still, Gumby with all of that. And now that he's been able to get his brush control and get those little skills down, he's beginning to figure out, more about what he can and can't do. And there are brush control techniques that I still haven't learned, and I've been doing it for forever. I mean, there are certain ways I just can't paint. I have to brace myself a very specific way. I have to have those points of contact. And I went to a contest one time at our local store where you had to paint a model in 4 hours. And I had a really hard time because I had to find a chair that was low enough that I could brace myself properly on the table. Because I was like, nope, I can't do this. My hands are not in the right spot, because it's the muscle memory that's tricky.
Yeah. So, as you and I have been in gaming for a long, long time, now granted, not as long as most, but what kind of things have you noticed that have changed over the years? Just trends, or just environment in general?
Well, the change in D&D or tabletop right now is just amazing to me. I grew up playing D&D. The first game I ever got to play, I was in high school, and I was 15 years old, and it was 1990, 91. And it was like, oh, this is amazing. And I went to the store to try to buy a copy of the player's handbook, and they looked at me like, we need your mom here to give you permission to sell this to you. I was like,
wow.
What? And they're like, it's demon worship. I'm like, no, it's not. It's the points to kill demons. Have you read the monster manual? And I also grew up in a very religious Southern place, so it was very hard to get any of that stuff. And luckily, where I went to high school, I went to a boarding school here in Mississippi, the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science. We had a gaming store very close by that we could walk to, and we were able to go and get some books. And it was that they didn't card us like it was beer, but we also, it was just and it was weird to have a girl. You could tell the boys were the boys asked me to play with them because they were friends with me, and we all were geeks together at that location. Everybody was a geek and a nerd there, and they asked me to play. And the first thing they asked me to play was, weirdly enough, BattleTech. And I liked BattleTech so much that they asked me to come play D&D with them. And the DM told me, we called him George. He was a great fellow. He's awesome. He's still a great fellow. But George gave me a DMG. He's like, here, take this and go get some other girls to play. Girls need to be playing this too, because the boys seem to be creeped out by your here. And I'm like, okay. So I did. I went over to the dorm, and we put towels over our doors so that they couldn't tell that we were playing D&D at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I had a blast, but it was still strange. When I left high school with a group of people who didn't think it was weird for girls to play by that point and went to college, it was strange to me to watch people be really bothered by, there's a girl in the group. Why is this girl here? And it was weird because the boys didn't know how to act. And it wasn't that they weren't accommodating. Some of them weren't, but it wasn't that the majority of them were accommodating or didn't want a girl there. They just really had their safe space invaded by a girl and didn't know what to do with it. And some of them, 2 games and they were great. I was one of the team, and not one of the guys, but one of the team. And that was great. They were fine. And there were some people that would stop playing with us because they didn't want to play with the girl, or a couple of people we kicked out because they didn't know how to play with the girl. And you don't see that happen now, and it got better as time wore on, of course. But in the last 10, 15 years, girls are normal to be there. And in the last 8 years, 10 years, girls are in the group. That, get over it. What the hell is wrong with you? Why do you think there shouldn't be a girl here? And now women are running the games. Women are running the game companies. Women have positions of writing. And you open that first edition DMG. Do you see a woman's name in there? Open the current edition of the DMG. How many women's names do you see in there? It's a huge difference. And it's because women can be accepted into that place because it's a safe space. And you find the players that go, yes, this is our safe space to be weird, because you're weird, you're strange, you're pretending to be a little, you're pretending to be a little paladin, a little, Bandy Tough Toe's going to stab you in the face. And it's strange. And it has to be a safe space. And I just love watching it grow, and I love listening to these young girls come in and be like, "Oh yeah, I got to play my first game of D&D, and this is what it's like." And I'm like, bless you, welcome to the fold. Now I just have to
That's
teach you that
great.
there's other games out there other than D&D.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Shayna, how do you balance your gaming interest with other aspects of your life?
Poorly. I'm very, I'm very lucky that while I am an attorney here in Mississippi, I'm very lucky with the fact that I have a great firm that I work with and great other attorneys. I'm not one of those lawyers that bills by the hour and goes crazy by it. So I have a very good separation of my work and my play. I'm also very lucky that my husband and I share 80 to 90% of our hobbies. We tabletop together. We do pretty much everything geeky together except paint. And he says, "Oh nope, that's your time. I'll be playing Civ 7 while you do that." Because you can't play Civilization with him. We do play a lot of video games together, but that's kind of how we do it. And for me, the really important thing is not so much the separation of my, work life and my home life and my hobby time. It's how to balance my hobby time properly. When can I play in a video game? When should I be painting? When are we playing D&D? When do I need to prep for my D&D session? I say D&D, but we actually play Savage Worlds. But it's just easier to call it D&D at this point. But that said, it's which hobby am I going to be doing tonight? And I'm very lucky in the fact that, I chose not to have children. My husband and I made that decision when we were in our 30s, and we we knew we didn't want kids. And so I don't have that balance. Now, how you women who have children make that balance, oh, dear Lord, bless you, because that's a hard decision to make when you have to. And so, I have a lot of people who are friends of mine who have been at my D&D table that do have kids. And now I'm DMing for some of their children, and I've DM'd games for kids as young as 8. I ran a constant game there for a group of teenage girls that were from the ages of 12 to 16, and it's introducing friends kids to the hobby sometimes. And like I said, one of my friends right now, her son sits there and listens to us play D&D while he paints miniatures, and it's I don't know how y'all that are married do it or have children do it. I just really don't. It's a difficult balance then.
We just get them involved in the same interests as we have.
Exactly, and trust me, when you have an 8-year-old kid stomp the hell out of you at Warhammer, you will rethink your life. He's he's like, "No, Auntie Shana, you're doing that totally wrong. You should do this and this and this, and then you can do so." And I'm like, "Oh, maybe I should let him pay my Space Marines. He's read the book a lot more than I have, clearly. Daddy doesn't let me play. He makes me read the books." And I'm like, "Okay."
Okay. What currently has you obsessed?
Hmm. Savage Worlds is the game of choice in my household. We have 2 games currently that I'm DMing. One plays every Wednesday. The other plays alternating Saturdays when we can all get together. The people that are at the tables are a little different. So, and Saturday is the only day that a couple of people can play. So, and it's 2 completely different campaigns and game worlds that I've made. So that, and I'm gonna plug Savage Worlds here. Here we go. It is a very similar game system to that of D&D in that it is a tabletop role-playing game, but it's classless, and it is intended for you to use it as a basis to create whatever game world or game system type thing you want to do. The rules are very, very easy to learn. It's exceptionally simple for new players to figure out how to play. And I have to say, it's got one of the most caring and respectful creators that I've ever met personally. I got to meet them at DragonCon multiple years because they believe that, is it cool? Is it fun? Then do it. Fast, furious, fun is the rule of the game. And it's basically a very simple to learn system. And I have introduced now, oh gosh, probably over a dozen people to tabletop role playing through Savage Worlds. And my paralegal, who's in her mid-50s, was listening to me tell stories about my D&D games. She's like, "I'd really like to watch." I'm like, "Sure, come over." And she sat on the couch for maybe 3-4 sessions before she's like, I have a character idea, and now she's a constant in our weekend games, you know. And it's just a very easy system to learn. And one of the best parts about it is you can do anything with it. The first game I ran with it was probably 2012, 2013. And actually, I back up. When did fourth ed with fifth? When did the fourth ed fifth ed switch happen?
Circa 2008.
That's when I switched to Savage Worlds.
Okay.
Because
It's part. It's
I didn't like
that's
fifth ed.
yeah.
You know, I enjoyed fourth ed for what it was. I understand that it didn't feel like D&D. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
For a DM, it was terrific because you didn't accidentally kill somebody. That was easier to balance stuff. But
Yeah.
when we switched to fourth ed to fifth ed, I'm like, I literally have two large trunks worth of books and they're useless again. No, I ain't doing this. I'm going to go to Savage Worlds. Um, and I had already played Savage Worlds a lot. They have a system called Deadlands, which is basically Cthulhu Wild West. It is an amazing story. It is a very in-depth world, and they had some really wonderful things that they used for the Deadlands game. And then they went, wait, we can take the Deadlands system that we use, simplify it just a little bit, and remove the sparkles that people are used to from it, and create a base system that people can put their own sparkle on. So the first game that I ran in Savage Worlds was 1866 London Monster Hunters. We called it our Buffy the Vampire Slayer game, and everybody played people who hunted monsters, and it was absolutely great because since it's a classless game. You can do whatever you want. You want to be a magic user, spend the points. You want to learn how to sword fight, spend the points. You want to do both, you're going to need a lot of points, but you can do it. And it was just a really great game. Then I took an old D&D game world I had from like the 2000s and switched it over, and we've run. So now I've run Cthulhu in it because it has a Cthulhu a setting. It has its Deadlands setting, and it has published settings for anything you want to do. Like you've got a setting for noir, you've got a setting for Cthulhu, you've got a setting for fantasy, and you have other people that have actually converted their systems into it. You remember Rifts from the 1980s, Kimmy?
Mm-hmm.
They have a Rift system, and it works. You don't need a slide rule for the math. It is the best. If you yeah, my husband is shaking his head in the background. If you loved Rifts, go buy Rift Savage World. I promise you will love it because there is a way to create a class if you want to, and Rifts figured it out. It was like, hey, you can create a class. You just let people have these specific buys before the game starts. Here's your class. And Rifts is chef's kiss. And Pathfinder went, holy crap, that works. And there's a Pathfinder in Savage Worlds, which works terrific. And, it's a really fun gaming system. It's not an advanced system, but you can make it an advanced system. So for someone like me who loves to fiddle with stuff, it's perfect. It really is. I do like it. And I'm one of those people that do not like running someone else's game world. Yes, I appreciate Dragonlance. Yes, I appreciate Forgotten Realms. Yes, I appreciate someone else's very hard work on a game system. But I want my own game world, my own story, my own creation. And when you're trying to run some other company's product, 9 times out of 10, it interferes with what you want to do, or it doesn't give you the tools to do with what you want to do. And Savage Worlds does. And that's my end of my Savage Worlds thing. I'm sorry. I apologize. Shout out to Jody and Clint Black who write it. So, and Shane Hensley. So
That's awesome. What advice would you have liked to be given when you first started painting miniatures?
Prime your miniature. Prime your miniature. It's important. You'll look at it 20 years later and go, it's shipping horribly. Of course, those are metal monies. Don't be afraid to mess up. You can always paint it again. The people of today's technology who have 3D printers or the ability to get 3D printed models from friends, you have something that we didn't have when me and Cammie were growing up in this, because we would have to buy the miniature. It was hard to go get the miniature. You had to make a special trip to go to the store to find the miniature, and you had to dig for the miniature. And so you didn't want to have to strip it and start over. It triggered your perfectionism. But
and then it may or may not look like your character.
yeah, and then and if you couldn't get them to make look like your character, you know how hard it was to find some female characters in D&D in the 90s. Oh my lord. I
With an axe and a shield.
Oh, well, yeah, and if she had an axe and a shield, she was only wearing a bikini. Thank you, Larry Elmore, for that set of models that I bought in 1994 or 3. But I
Right.
still have them all, but oh my lord, they're all like pinup models. Um, but that said, it's very cathartic to look at a model and go, this costs 7 cents of resin. It's not a big deal if I mess this up. I mean, that's why I have a well, one of the reasons why I have underneath my kitchen table boxes and boxes and boxes of miniatures. One, I'm addicted to Reaper Kickstarters, but I also have like whole armies of D&D of Warhammer. They're still in the box because I have that. I want it to be right when I paint it problem. And so I have an entire thing of Sisters of Battle that have been sitting there since 2000. I've painted 3 models, and I'm like, I like the scheme. Let me do something else. So,
Yeah. When I bought the start, when I closed my store, I had all this merchandise, and I did a lot of trading, and I wound up trading for someone's sister's army they had started, and this was back in 2009, I think. Um, and there were, I swear to God, there were 7 different color schemes that where they had started.
oh
Um,
God.
one of them, one of the miniatures, had 3 or 4 different color schemes on the model because as I was stripping it, I saw these layers coming off.
Oh God.
And I was like, that explains a few things. Like because I was like, is this a bad cast or is it just really thick paint? And no, it was just many layers of paint.
Mm.
So, but yeah, it was kind of fun. It was like an archaeological dig as I just scrubbed, and each of these layers kept coming off.
And here we find where he thought the color red was amazing. He
Right.
changed his mind.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
It's kind of like a
yeah.
jawbreaker.
Right, right. Oh,
Keep.
that's sour. We didn't like that. All right. So, if you could advise girls wanting to get into hobby or even the war dolls, what would you tell them?
Well, to get into the War Dolls, find our Discord and come Thursday night. That's it. That's all you got to do. I've never met a community more welcoming. It's just, we're
Thank you.
just, it's just, well, it is. It is. There's a reason why I come every Thursday night, and I think a few people have to learn to tell one or two of us to hush every once in a while because we'll talk until our tongues fall off. But some people find it comforting to sit there and listen to us tell stupid stories. So, but and I've actually find it really awesome. I've been able to give some advice to some folks in the background because, like I said, I have a legal degree and I specialize in family law in my state, and it is kind of what I do. But I'm also very knowledgeable about how to properly get name changes and stuff like that. So it's very
Yes.
very cool when someone reaches out to me and goes, "Hey, I need to do my name change, or I need to look at changing my birth certificate. Can you help me with that?" I'm like, I don't know your state, but I'll do the research and get you in touch with a lawyer that can help you. It's
You are a wonderful ally
well,
to
I
to be
try.
sure.
I try. I have some stories about some weirdness in my own state, but it's one of those things to where it's important to be who you are, and
Hmm.
anything I can do to help somebody be who they are, be it divorce them from an abusive spouse, or help them, get their will ready because they know that there's an issue in their life, or just change their name. Is something when a 12-year-old kid contacts you and goes, "My dad's horrible, my mom loves me. How do I figure out how to get my stepdad to adopt me?" And you'll never do anything better than an adoption. It's
Oh,
one of those things that I have cried at so many adoptions, but it's just a wonderful thing, especially, I mean, even if it's a kid who's 12 or 13 years old, babies are awesome, but that 13-year-old who's finally with a family that they know loves them and cares for them, it's amazing.
Absolutely. So, Shayna, if you could teach a class pertaining to a hobby or a game or just something, what would you teach?
Probably would teach a painting class. I would love to teach a class for young DMs. I think that would be fun too. Just starting out DMs, the tricks and the trades, and how to not care when your players completely shoot your game in the head and go wandering downstairs. But that's kind of a niche, really, really niche thing. But I have taught painting classes before, and I do enjoy teaching painting. It's teaching someone to have the confidence to be wrong, and that little mistakes can be fixed. It's that Bob Ross statement. It's a happy little accident. And the young man who's been painting with me, he had this horrible accident a couple of days ago. He broke the model, and he's like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, nope, today we learned how to use super glue. See, you just learned something new today. It's not a problem. We learn on what glues to use on a resin model. And now we learn how to make that look like a really cool scar on his arm where his arm broke off, So I think I would probably teach a painting class.
That's really cool.
You'd be amazing at it. You'd be wonderful at it.
My stepdaughter is currently at the ugly stage of her model for the Young Bloods competition at Adepticon.
Ooh.
And she's like, I don't know how to fix it. I fix one thing and then it looks terrible. So then I have to go back and fix this other thing. And I just keep going back and forth between these two colors. And she's so frustrated at this point.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're in the ugly stage. You just need to get past that and keep pushing yourself. Like trying to motivate her to.
A lot of times I will see professional painters paint one thing on a model, like they'll only paint the cloak or they'll only paint the face. And then you see the professional modelers or painters who will paint the whole model, base tones, base coats, and then focus on one object. And I think that focusing on one object helps us get it to an ugly face and get it pretty, and then we can go, I'm going to be okay. And then you can focus on the rest of the model. And even though you have that ugly phase, his face looks horrible, his cloak looks awesome, So I think that's kind of a way a lot of people unknowingly and maybe knowingly work their way through the ugly phase, because there is always a point in a model where you're like, what the bleep was I thinking? I'm that way right now with my large Wendigo creature. I was like, why did I decide to paint him a bright jade blue? What was I thinking? And then after a little bit more highlights, I'm like, oh, that's why I decided to do it. It looks pretty badass. But you gotta work through that point. And it can be really scary to a younger or a newer painter, because they haven't had that reward of it looking the way they want it to yet.
Correct. Yep. All right, so we got some rapid fire questions for you.
Uh-oh. Okay.
First thing that comes to your mind. Favorite travel destination?
Santorini, Greece. It's beautiful. I would go back in a heartbeat. Greece in general, I would go back in a heartbeat.
Awesome.
It was the best trip my husband and I have ever taken, so it was great.
Fantastic. Painting minis or playing games?
Playing games. Playing D&D or playing Savage Worlds. Playing tabletop.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Hands down.
What was your favorite model to paint?
Smog. The Smog miniature that the Lord of the Rings Games Workshop put out they put it out in the 2000s, 2010s early, and I was hired by our local gaming store to paint it. It took me I judged it by hours. I painted it to Downton Abbey, and I made it entirely through the series once and came back and made it through the middle of season 2 before I finished it.
Wow.
But it was a delight. It was an absolute learning experience for me to paint, and it was one of the best models I've ever done. So
it was a huge model. I remember when it came out. It was absolutely huge.
He's sitting on, how you have the cake plate spinners that a lot of us will use that come in our painting, our airbrush vents and stuff like that. That large black cake plate spinner. His base was bigger than that. That's how big that model was. Yeah, when you took his tail in its pieces, it was longer than my arm, but it curled around him. He was an amazing model to paint. He was a bitch to put together.
GW or Army painter?
Army painter. I will say that I have painted with GW paint since the 90s. I will also say that I have only about 5 pots of it left on my table. once the new Army Painter Fanatic came out, I literally took everything on my table that had even a close match and put it in my. This is where I keep my stored paints. I only use this once in a while paints, fluorescents, and stuff like that. And I put every Army Painter pot I have away. It's the newer formula seems to dry out faster. The pots are annoying as bleep. And I can get every color in the rainbow someplace else, except for Rhinox Hide and Ushapti Bone. Those are the only two colors I can't seem to find a proper match for. And I will still use Retributor Gold because it's just a beautiful, beautiful one pass works. And sometimes I will paint a model with Retributor Gold and then go over it with someone else's metallic paint. Oh, wow. I just use the Retributor to stick to the primer and give me a base coat.
Yeah, we're thinking about taking all of our GW paints and putting them into dropper bottles, just because.
I did that with their washes, and because their washes are still some of the best washes out there. I will still use their washes. I'll take that back. I will use their washes. Their Agrax Earthshade and their Sepia Sepia, the original color Sepia Sepia, or Sepia Sepia, whichever one it is. Those two colors are great, but they changed their Sepia. It's not the same tone anymore, which is pretty much why I haven't painted my Sisters of Battle, because I was using that as a major tone for them.
Oh no!
Yeah, and so I'm like, breaks,
That was my big issue with them. I started painting my Eldar in Hawk Turquoise, and they killed that.
Yeah, I lose that color.
Yeah,
and
so
I love their washes, but I've never tried to put their paint in dropper bottles. Maybe that would fix some of my problems with it, except for the cost.
Yeah.
And how much paint you're going to lose putting it in a dropper bottle when it's, I can buy an Army Painter bottle. How many? You can buy 3 for what you can buy 1 pot of GW. Is that about right?
2.
Or is it 2?
2.
That's still, no.
Yeah, well, the Army Painter gets better when you buy them in sets. They get a lot cheaper when you buy them in sets.
Yeah.
Now, I'll be really honest. My second go-to paint, and sometimes my first go-to paint, is Monument Hobbies. Is
Pro Acryl?
Pro Acryl. I absolutely adore their reds. Oh gosh, their red shades are some of the best out there. And I have yet to find exactly the mix I want for bone, but I will go to Pro Acryl almost as much as I would go to Army Painter, probably more. And I love the fact that they're this. If you want a set of Pro Acryl, once you buy 6, they give you the set discount no matter what.
Nice.
They don't care. So, if you're like, well, I don't want this and I don't want this out of this particular set, they're like, if you buy single bottles from them, they give you the discount once you hit the number. And they are quick shipping. And their dropper bottles, some people don't like them. I kind of do. I don't tend to squeeze too hard with them as much. And I do like the way they safety seal. A lot of people hate their dropper bottles, though. It's just not me. But what people have problems with Pro Acryl over Army Painter is Pro Acryl is intended to not necessarily be used on a wet palette. The guy who made it doesn't like using wet palettes, so Pro Acryl paint tends to be a slight bit thinner than Army Painter paint does. So gotcha. that's just a trick to learn how to use it properly. But the vibrancy of the colors, can't go wrong.
Awesome. Plastic or metal?
Plastic. You will never catch me painting a metal mini again. Not gonna happen.
What's your favorite candy?
Snickers.
That's a good one.
Hands down.
Melee build or spellcaster?
Melee build. I am not your healer girl. I am your punch you in the face girl. My first character was a ranger, and I couldn't tell you if she even had ranger spells. In fact, every once in a while when we're playing tabletop, we'll give each other role-playing challenges, my husband and I will. And I think my next role-playing challenge is I have to play someone who is not a melee build, who is a spellcaster. And I'm like, well, I'm playing a bard then. I'm not playing some twinkie mage. It's not happening.
I never can remember. I tried it in the LARP, and I couldn't remember my verbals.
That's why you needed to play a ranger. You didn't have to know your verbals. You could just go, I'm a ranger, so entangle.
I looked really hard at ranger when
I
it came
loved
out.
Ranger. Oh,
I
love
I, I
Ranger.
was I was this close to playing a ranger.
Did you play a
I was
um
just straight fighter.
the Straight Fighter? I didn't know if you had gone to the whatever they call the split class that they had, which was
Templar.
like Templar, yeah, which was really good once you got a lot of points spent into it.
Right,
But
right. I crunched the numbers. I wrote out Templar and I wrote out Ranger, and the end result was stay fighter.
yeah, I can see that. I definitely can see that.
Slays were cheaper.
Oh, so much cheaper for me.
Slay that, and that's what I casted.
Well, here, let me touch you and you're dead. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
best sword ability you can have.
right.
I
So
always used to love it. This is something about live action role playing in the 90s. We used to call the girls who had come with their boyfriends ghoul friends, because I originally started playing a vampire LARP, and so they were ghoul friends. They didn't know how their character worked, they didn't know how anything went, but they did know their boyfriend was going to a vampire LARP where there were girls dressed in sexy black dresses, and they were not going to have him go without them. So, oh, of course, I'm interested in playing vampire, sweetie. A lot of them stayed after their boyfriends left. But you would have the same problem when we went to the fantasy one that Cammy and I played. People would think, oh, well, she's just here to be her boyfriend's healer, and they would be wearing a nice little girl's dress, and they'd have their hair in pigtails, and they'd have their hands full of spell packets, and then one of them would rip out a hammer and just start calling damage on somebody. They'd be like, what is this? And it was always funny to me that nobody knew that me and Ellis dated, that my husband and I were dating, because we were just dating at that point. But they all thought that I had come by myself, and that was such a compliment back then, that everybody was like, "Oh, you mean you're dating that guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm dating him." I'm like, "Oh, we just thought you came by yourself." And I went, "That's awesome." You see me for me, not me as somebody's girlfriend. It was
Well,
a big
also
compliment back then.
you weren't playing the healer.
I wasn't playing a healer. No, I was playing a ranger who ran around. At
Right.
one point as a shield and axe, and then I changed out of my shield for a giant hammer in my offhand, because I discovered I could block better with the giant hammer than I could with the shield. And I had slays in that hand, so I was calling damage in both hands. What was it? Stuart Lacey said one time? He's like, I think I just got hit hard enough that Shana made me see the next universe.
Oh. Super or plastic glue?
Depends on what I'm gluing together, but 9 times out of 10, the answer is super glue.
That's the right answer.
That is the right answer.
Yeah. Plastic glue is only good for one thing.
The trash can.
And hey, I'll tell you one thing I have learned to start putting some things together with is UV resin.
I need to start experimenting with that, because my biggest gripe with 3D printed miniatures is after having painted one, very well, and then smashing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah.
So,
And that is you can use super glue on some of the inside pieces that you can't get a resin light to. But if I had a model that was 3D printed, but he's printed separate from his base, and the super glue just would not adhere right. And I'm like, why do I care? I just put resin in there, and UV light hit it, and he was solid as a rock.
I have a little UV flashlight, but I don't know if it's the right.
Oh, it'll work. It'll
Okay.
work. Yeah.
All right.
I also use UV sometimes on bases. I'll paint the base blue, white, and put like a few rocks on it, and then I'll put dabs of UV resin on top of it and shine just exactly what we're talking, a little black light flashlight on it, and it creates a water effect that's absolutely just perfect.
Nice.
You just got to make sure you're in a ventilated area, or you will go, oh, I might be giving myself cancer.
And seeing things.
Oh, you will see things.
All right. So, are you a morning person or a night owl?
Night person. All my life. Some of my fondest memories are me and my mom when I was like 7 and 8 watching Johnny Carson. So I am a night person. Mornings are evil and only should be met if you watched it start.
That's pretty fair.
So besides the War Dolls Discord, where else can our listeners find you?
Oh, that's kind of hard. I'm not out there on YouTube or any of that kind of stuff, and I kind of paint for myself and paint for my local gaming store. But I do have an Instagram that I need to be on more. You can definitely find my miniatures when I when I do them on the War Dolls Facebook page. And I always put my own stuff on my own personal Facebook page. However, my personal Facebook page is friend locked. But if you're there for models, I'll unlock it, let you see it. That's cool. I'll invite friends in that are there to learn and to paint. But probably, the easiest thing to honestly say is if you just want to see what I paint, Instagram is probably best, which I think is under my name. I'll give you a link for it.
We also throw our Thursday hobby hang stuff on the Wardall's Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you have had stuff featured there, and thanks to Steph for doing all that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you can definitely find me at the Thursday night hangout, unless for some reason I have, been absconded with something and miss a Thursday night here or there. I'm going to miss the last week of March and the first week of April because I'll be out of town overseas. Me and my husband are going to Italy, so you won't see me those 2 weeks, but you'll see me probably any other week on Thursday night for a little while.
Ciao.
I've never got to go to Italy before. I'm so looking forward to it.
Well, Shana, thanks so much for coming on the show today. And yeah, it does. It does. But yeah, thank you for coming on the show today and letting us ask you questions.
No, thank you for highlighting those of us that aren't necessarily stars in the hobby, but are just, regular war dolls. It's pretty awesome,
You are a star. I understand what you're saying though. You're not as
Well, there's that first moment that you walk into the hobby hang and you're like, oh, that's Ella Firespray. I've been watching her on YouTube for forever. It's
yeah, we do have some pillars of the community, so to speak. It was wonderful meeting her at Adepticon last year, and some other people, like Anne. Anne had been a war doll for a while before I met her, working for AMG at the time. And I was, these and then at Adepticon, I bumped into Jamie Daggers and Lila Mev, and I was just starstruck. So thank you for joining us today, Shada.
No, it's like I said, it's a pleasure.
Wonderful. So anybody who is just joining the podcast for the first time, the War Dolls is a community of geeky girls that are here to support one another and celebrate one another and inspire one another. You can find us online at thewardolls.com. We are also on social media with Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Discord. Most of them are the War Dolls, and you can find that Discord link on the Instagram page. If you're interested in being a part of our community, just get in touch with us at any one of those places, or you can email us at thewardolls@gmail.com.
You got that Gmail address? Oh, yeah.
And if you want to come join us over on Discord, we do our hobby hang in the chat channel every Thursday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So you can just come in and listen, hang out, chat with us. It's always a good time.
It is always a good time.
Be prepared to laugh.
Yes. Yes. As always, if you have any questions for our guests or topics that you would love for us to discuss with them, you can message us again on Facebook or Instagram or at the email address.
Until next time, stay clever, ladies.
And be kind to yourself.
Mother, I won't scream if you put me in your lap.